Welcome to the Transition Talks podcast with your host, Josh Ackerman. Josh, good to be with you. How are you?
Bill, I'm doing wonderful. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing really, really well. When we record this, you and I were talking before we started. I'm getting a little bit of taste of fall here in the Northeast, and it's really nice to have that crisp sort of early fall, brisk air at night. You know, when you can leave the window open and just throw another blanket on the bed.
Yes, exactly.
So what are we talking about today?
So today we've got, in my world anyway, we've got something of a rock star. We've got Carl Richards, who has done a fantastic job of distilling sometimes fairly complicated financial services concepts into sketches, into a visual representation. And
perfect for somebody like me.
Perfect for a lot of people. And Carl's got a new book coming out in October. And so we're going to walk through, I'm going to hope we can get through 3 of the sketches. We'll see how we do. And so give people kind of a look ahead into the book and a glimpse into kind of the thinking that Carl has in, like I said, some fairly complex ideas in financial planning, but I think it plays really well when you have the sketch to kind of enter into this world. Carl, you want to give people who may not know who you are as well as I do a glimpse into who you are and how in the world you got here?
Sure. And first, Josh, thank you. Honored to be here. I know we've known each other a long time, so I really appreciate you having me on today. So background, I got into the financial services industry like almost 26 years ago. Was originally working at big banks, big brokerage firms. Started my own firm at one point. And somewhere along that line, during that time when I'd started my own firm, I remember sitting across the table from a client, a couple of clients, and they were super smart, successful people. And I was trying to explain a concept that was really important to them. And I was just getting blank stares back. And some of your listeners that may be a familiar feeling to them of just like being the person with the blank stare, just like, I'm smart, I'm successful, and I have no idea what you are talking about, Mr. or Mrs. Advisor. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, wait, they're really smart, they're really successful. This must be my problem, right? Like,
yeah.
And I felt a little sense of panic. And I did something I'd never done before. I stood up. There was a whiteboard in this office. I shared an office with people. I'd never used the whiteboard. In fact, I wasn't quite sure what was behind the oak paneled doors. Anyway, I opened this up and there's a whiteboard there. And I drew something. It was like some circles and square and some arrows or something, just trying to explain the concept. And the client said, oh, now we get it.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I just remember sort of the almost the tenor of the feeling of understanding. And so I tried it again. Right. And I kept trying it. And then I put some up online back in the day when, Al Gore had just recently invented the internet. We still had like dial-up modems.
Yep.
I put them up on the internet, and one thing led to another. And I'm really not skipping a lot of steps. I mean, there was a bunch of years of nobody paying any attention, but at a certain point, the editor of the New York Times sent me an email, and I keep this email because nobody believes it, but it just said, hey, I love these. Would you consider doing them for us? And we did a week-long sort of trial, and then we ended up doing them once a week for a decade. That led to the books, and then at a certain point, I was like, that led to me selling my firm and mainly focusing on sort of financial education, speaking, consulting since then. So that's the background, and this will be the book you've mentioned in October. Will be the 3rd book.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's jump in. And the first sketch that we're going to talk about, and for the people listening to the podcast, luckily, Carl's sketches lend themselves very well to kind of a verbal description. The first sketch is titled More Than What You Do. So you picture a large circle, and that circle is labeled life. Inside that circle is a smaller circle, And that one is labeled money and work.
Mm.
And Carl, this sketch is, in my mind anyway, as a financial planner, this sketch is the entire ballgame,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
As a financial planner, if someone comes to me and they know what they want to do, who they want to be when they grow up, they know what the plan is, and they just need someone to do the math, the calculator is always going to solve the problem faster than I can.
Mm-hmm.
And the calculator could literally be the financial calculator, financial planning software, Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Google knows everything. So the job is helping the client figure out, how do I fill the circle, the big circle that's labeled life, when money and work is only a small piece of that circle? And
Yeah.
I'm curious, where did this sketch come from? How did you come up with this one?
No, it's that's a great question. And your sort of thinking behind it is really great to hear. I think I learned this mainly from, we moved, sort of a kind of a crazy, irrational decision that turned out to be one of the best decisions we ever made. We moved out of the country, and we'd always wanted to move out of the country just to have that experience. And so we moved to New Zealand for what was supposed to be a year, and it turned into 4. And I remember it wasn't very long there. I had a friend over there, and he would introduce me to people, and I would say, within the first 30 seconds of meeting somebody new, I would say something like, "What do you do?" And, like we do in
Right.
the States for sure. And it's so interesting that we reply with, "I am a," right? Like,
yeah,
I am a doc, like it's this huge piece of our identity. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a plumber. I'm a mechanic. But my friend stopped me after I'd done this like 6 or 7 times and said, he said, "Mate, why do you ask that question? Like we don't ask that question here. Like, ask them about their family. Ask them about their next holiday. Ask them about what they did on the weekend." And that got me thinking. And this was a couple years long of thinking about this idea of like, it's so interesting that we often put money and work at the center of our lives. And that sketch is not drawn with it at the center intentionally, but
right.
we often put it at the center of our lives, and it becomes the organizing principle. So we arrange everything else around it, right? Like, we'll fit the kids in. We'll fit exercise in. We'll fit sleep in, right?
Yeah.
Like, around work. And some of that is out of pure necessity. And that's a systemic problem that we could talk more about. But I'm more curious about, like, when we have a choice, and often I think most of us do have a choice, and I think most of the listeners of the show do, we put it at the center. And I think one of the really important pieces of financial planning is what you were pointing to, which I just call it goal clarification over time.
Yeah.
Like, it's very rare. And if you're listening to this and you feel this way, you are not alone. Like, it's very rare that we actually know what we really want. Sometimes we think we do. And then we go try it and we learn, like, I thought I wanted $5 million in a sailboat. Right. And then I went sailing once and I realized I don't even like the water.
Right.
And I could tell you lots of stories like that. So it's the process of saying, what is it that I want with my life? And how can I align my use of capital, my money, energy, time, and attention? How can I align my use of capital with what's important, so the rest of that circle is filled with the things that actually matter, the things that actually generate? And it turns out that those things are relatively simple but not easy to do because nobody promotes them on Instagram. Like, so I think that's where all the confusion comes from, is it's like, I'm not sure exactly what my goals are. Okay, I'll look to the world. Now I look to Instagram and I realize I'm supposed to want a cabin in Montana, and because that's on Instagram, right? And then I go try the cabin in Montana and I realize I don't even like it. So this process of getting clear is a never-ending process. And I think that's the process of real financial planning.
Well, and I think it's fascinating that you sit down with the client and you say, the stereotypical question, tell me what your goals are.
Right.
And then you realize that no one's ever asked the client, so tell me what your goals are.
Right.
The client, in many senses, has never thought about that question. And so and some people feel bad, feel embarrassed that they don't know the answer. They feel like, oh, well, that should be a simple question. The waiter is standing right here asking what I want for dinner. I should be able to answer the question.
Yeah.
And it's a much bigger question than that. And it takes some time and some thought. And the first answer you get is probably not the right answer. It's probably going to take some time and some repetition to kind of dig down to the one that actually sticks.
Totally.
To the one that actually works.
So, I mean, there's even base level confusion about what a financial goal is, right? Like if you watch the Financial Pornography Network very often, you think it's a goal to beat the market.
Right.
Right. Like that's what you mean. I want to beat the market. I want to outperform my neighbor. I want to, like, those aren't actually financial goals. And so, yeah, there's that problem. There's the problem of when we are asked, I can feel it between my shoulder blades. Like I can feel sort of the tension of the word goal. And so it's much more a process of like, let's take a guess. Hey, what do you think you'd like to see in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? Okay. Why? Let's explore that a little bit. Let's design small little experiments to see, like if you say, to stick with our analogy, you say you want the cabin in Montana, it's so interesting because second homes are one of the classic examples of a thing everybody says you should want. So you think you want it. And then it's not universal, but I know way more people that sell their second homes than keep them.
Right.
Right. Because you think it's something you want. Well, okay, Montana, cabin in the Montana. Could you go there for a week? Like rent one. Could you go there for 3 weeks? Like, do you like it? We can run little experiments to see. And you may come home and say, we love it. We could see ourselves spending every summer there. Incredible. Spend a summer before we buy the cabin. Amazing. That's incredible. Or you may come home and say, gosh, we didn't like it at all. Either way, those are good answers.
Mm-hmm,
so yeah,
definitely.
You're exactly right. That I think is an important part of the process that we don't think about much.
Yeah, we have a client who liked to spend time on the Gulf Coast, and she came back from one of her trips, and she said, "I'm thinking about buying property on the beach." And I said, "Well, I think you have a choice. Right now, you have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money once you start buying real estate, and when you walk on the beach, 95% of those properties that you see while you're walking are for rent. That's how the people who own the property maintain it, is that they rent it out most of the time. So you could rent property and never watch a hurricane forecast in your life. Or you could buy a property and spend some time perhaps watching every hurricane forecast that comes in during a certain storm to see whether your house is going to be there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, go find a realtor you like and send her a picture of the house you want to be in next trip. And I'm pretty sure she can find out who owns it and get you the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great example of just simply exploring options.
Yeah.
Right. Like just opening up the kind of playful exploration of options and also sort of starting to get clear about, great, that's the stated goal. What's the why behind the goal? And then once we know the why behind the goal, we can start to say, what's the best way to realize that? Sometimes like what's a way we can afford to realize it, but I'm not even so worried about that. I'm much more interested in like, what's the best way to realize that goal? Sometimes that way could turn out to be cheaper than the option you were thinking of. That's a bonus. But what we're mostly trying to do is actualize that value. Like we're not investing in property on the shore. We're investing in what? Oh, my family loves to come and I love how quiet it is. And it just feels like I'm unplugged. and I get to read, like, oh, those are really interesting. Is the best way to realize those values owning the property, renting the property? Is that the best place to do it? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the answer might be, yeah, buy a place.
Right. And I think, as I figured out fairly early in my career, no client actually has a financial goal. We as the advisors talk about financial goals. Clients have a personal goal that has a price tag.
That's right. Funded with dollars. That's right.
Yeah. But nobody shows up and says, this is my financial goal.
Right.
Speaking of that, that's, my unplanned segue. So the next slide is we see money differently.
Yeah.
And this is the power of a very simple symbol. And the symbol is an S shape with either one line or two lines, one line or two vertical lines through that S, making the classic dollar sign.
Yeah.
And a box that is my view of money and a circle that is your view of money.
Yeah.
And the question, again, kind of what's the backstory on this one?
Yeah, this was a conversation with my wife Corey, and it's happened a number of times, but the one that's coming to mind right now is that I came home one day and was from work and was feeling very like sort of beast of burden-ish. I was like, oh, I was probably talking in that tone, and I was certainly slumped over with my shoulders hunched a bit. And I said something like, oh, and Corey was like, what's wrong? I was like, oh, making money is just so hard. And she was like, she looked at me sort of like she was going to give me a little bit of this like swift kick in the butt talk, but she was empathetic about it. And she said, hey, I have an idea. What if it was, just play with me here. What if it was fun and easy? And I remember thinking, and I'm sure I didn't respond this well in the moment, because in the moment I was probably a little offended, a little hurt. But I remember thinking later, like, wait, how that thought has never occurred to me. Like I have never had that thought about money, that it's fun and easy. It's never crossed, like literally like crossed my mind. That thought has never crossed my mind. And I remember like we had a long conversation where I was like, tell me how you think that way. She's like, well, it doesn't have to be hard. Like it could still be, and we actually changed the word to heavy. It doesn't have to be heavy. It can still be hard. It's hard work.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be heavy and burdensome. Like look around. There are people who, and this isn't actually a reflection of the amount you make. Independent of the amount you make, there are people who approach it lighthearted and fun. There are people who whistle while they work. There are other people who complain while they work. Same dollar amount, different choice, different attitude. And I was just like, man, that had never. So I realized right then, and then in subsequent, that's probably one of my older sketches actually, that we all approach this symbol we call money differently. To some of us, it means security. To others, it means flexibility and freedom, right? To some, it can mean oppression. To some, it's greed. Others, it's fear. Like and if we just remember to approach our conversations with one another, realizing like, and another interesting example of this is, have you ever sat next to your spouse or partner and watched a movie? You leave the movie, you run into some friends, and you listen to your spouse or partner describe the movie you were at. Like, oh, it's so great. And you're literally like, that's not the movie I saw.
Yeah.
Or you've both read the same book, or I've seen the study on this, like two people standing next to each other who witness a car accident. They're standing right next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. And then there's a study I read once where it was the police reports. Mm-hmm. And they described different accidents. They were standing next to each other. So I think if we realize like financially, even with our spouses, our partners, our kids, we are actually living in different worlds financially because of the way we feel about it. And if we can remember that that's informing this discussion, this heated debate we just got into, we could just pause and go, wait. It feels like maybe we're viewing things differently here. And then just take the moment to listen to the other side and how they're feeling about it. And you could be like, oh, now I understand, right?
Yeah.
Like I understand. So that's where that sketch came from.
Very interesting. All right. And now, this one is one of my absolute favorites. It's titled Two Games. And on the left-hand side, we have a squiggly line up and down rapidly. And it's titled Speculating. Then on the other side, a smooth arrow going up and to the right called Investing. And I interpret this, and this is actually kind of formative in my growth as a financial advisor. When I started out, we had CNBC in the office. And so I kind of always knew what was going on in the market, sort of by default. And the TV broke or cable went out, something happened, and we didn't have CNBC for a couple of weeks. And so I went into a client meeting for lunch, and the client said, "Hey, did you see what happened in the market this morning?" And I said, "Nope," because I had, didn't have CNBC. And they said, "Well, isn't that your job?" Right. And I thought about it, and I said, "No, that's not my job. My job is 30 years from now."
Yeah.
And the market 30 years from now has got nothing to do with what happened this morning.
Right.
Right. So I think, to me, that's when I saw this sketch the first time, that's kind of how I interpreted it. I'm pretty sure that's not exactly how you meant it.
Yeah, no, I love that example though. And I have similar experiences, right? Like I remember my father-in-law used to ask me what the market did today. Hey, how's the market? And I would say, I don't know. And after like 5 or 6 times of that, he said, "What do you do?" Right? And I had to explain to him, like, yeah, long-term goals, which are actually probably inversely correlated to knowing what the market did today.
Mm-hmm.
I've had lots of those experiences. I recently was at the gym hearing somebody overhearing somebody talking about the market, and I realized I couldn't tell you within 10,000 points. It's been more than a year maybe since I knew where any major index is, and I'm less connected now than I was as an advisor, but it's still good. But here's the point of that sketch. The point of that sketch is they're both valid games, right? Like,
yep.
Speculating is a fine. Like if you want to speculate, there are people who do that for a living, and who am I to tell them it's a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. The problem is the problem is if you don't know which game you're playing.
Right.
And most of us, I would imagine that most of the people listening to this, and most of us who want to have lives and have normal jobs, like we're not speculators. And speculation is closer, unless you're really, really, really like full-time devoted to it. It's much closer to gambling. In fact, even if you're full-time devoted to it, it's much closer to a probabilities game.
Yep.
Investing is a behavior game. Investing is just a game of time.
Right.
Buying good things and holding on to them for a long time. The problem is everything that you see, and you referenced the Financial Pornography Network earlier, everything that you see, I mean, you didn't call it that in fairness, so nobody misquotes you. I'm calling it that. Everything you see that is pretending to be about investing. They say they're investors. They say investing. They are saying they're wrong. That's not investing, that's speculating. And so right. I think that's the important part is if you start to understand that whole financial circus industry that's been built, that's entertainment and it's speculating. If you want to engage in that, it's okay to engage. It's like going to the movies, or the circus. Like there's circus clowns juggling. It's okay. Just don't confuse it with what you're doing on the investing side of your life.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right? It may be important to you to be informed. Maybe that's important to you to have something to talk about with your buddies. Maybe it's an important part of your job. It might be, but it's not investing.
Right. Well, and I've got, one of my best friends from second grade on is a fund manager, and he and I will talk about what the market does. And within his narrow part of the world that is the parameters of his fund, he can tell you what's going on with amazing accuracy. But outside,
what has gone on,
right? And but outside of that, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because that isn't his job.
Well, it's easy. Like, I mean, I have deep empathy for people, for all of us getting confused about this. I get confused about it. Like, it's easy to understand why we want, from the earliest time, we have wanted people who could tell us what's going on and what will happen in the future. Like, when will the rain come? Where are the buffalo? Like, we've always wanted that. And they appear to be not like they've got suits on and ties and they're calling in from London and New York. Like, it appears to be important. Like, it looks very important.
Yes.
It's just that it's not, it has nothing to do with investing. It has to do with this entire, and all you have to do is find the greatest investors in the world and realize, like Buffett's quote, which just follows me around everywhere, is the hallmark of our investment success is benign neglect bordering on sloth. Like that's investing.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, thank you very much for your time. Tell me again, when does the book come out?
October 21st. It's obviously available right now for pre-order everywhere you can buy your books. My favorite suggestion, buy one on Amazon, buy one at your local bookstore.
I think that's wonderful. As a former employee of independent bookstore, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan, so that would be great.
All right. Carl, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Josh. That was really fun.
Good.
And that was very entertaining. But before we get out of here, Josh.
Yes, sir.
We know where we can buy Carl's book, 2 places preferably. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in having a conversation with you?
At contextfinancial.com.
That's easy.
It is.
That's good. The other thing you can do is just as easy as that. In fact, it's even easier than that. If you're listening to this podcast and you're not a subscriber, hit the follow button. That way you will automatically be notified the next time Josh drops a new episode, and you can give that one a listen as well. And if you like this podcast, may I be so bold as to ask you to go out and tell people about it, okay? Word of mouth promotion is invaluable, and it's a whole lot better than some weird thing on the internet popping up, making recommendations to you, and you don't even know who's making the recommendation. So thank you for doing that. And until next time, I'm Bill Tucker. On behalf of Josh and everybody at Context Financial, thank you for taking the time to listen today, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Transition Talks, Business Exit and Retirement Strategies with Josh Ackerman from Context Financial. Are you a business owner looking to sell or make a transition? Connect with Josh on social media using today's show notes links. You might just be his next guest. To ensure you don't miss a new episode, please click the follow button. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Context Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.